Yo, what up, everybody? I'm Dave Miranda, and this is episode 14 of Just Give Me 5. If you see the hat I have on, then just know you're not losing your mind. It's exactly what it appears to be. It's our official Just Give Me 5 snapbacks that are available for purchase now, yo. What? Yo, go to the link right here, and you can order yours today. We also have tees available as well in both black and white. In fact, Jimmy's wearing one right now. They'll also be available inside Trill, so shout outs to the homies Chuck and Felix for helping us make that happen. And shout outs to all of you for the continued support. It is greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. If you guys caught episode 13, we had the one and only Penny the Great on. And let me tell you, those South by Southwest stories he was kicking were taking me back, yo. Wow, man, such amazing times, man. I really hope they bring South by Southwest back in the future, man. I believe they will. I believe they will. But this time, we'll be going out there for film. And the Tupac stories that he told, man, like, come on, man. Like, yo, I personally do not know anyone besides him that was in Vegas that night in 1996, man. I don't. And I know him, so I know he ain't BSing us, y'all. He's kicking straight facts, man. So that was just amazing stuff, man. Make sure you guys watch episode 13, and nothing but love to my brother Penny the Great. All right. But today's guest is like Mr. Renaissance man. I mean, he's been in radio, he's been in television. He's a genuinely good-hearted individual who has a homeless outreach program called #Lunchbag, and we're gonna definitely get into that. But he's been on billboards. He's been on magazine covers. I mean, you name it, he's most likely done it. And he's also the younger brother of Raqqa Irish Science from the hip-hop group Dilated Peoples, and we're gonna touch on that as well. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you, Ramses Ja.
What up, y'all? This is Ramses Ja, and all I'm saying is just give me 5. That's a combination of things that inspired me to get into radio. So a lot of folks know that I have an older brother that's a rapper. He's in a group called Dilated Peoples. And, you know, in the early 2000s, they signed to Capitol Records and they, you know, started touring real heavy. So at that time, I was still going to school at ASU, working on my bachelor's at the time. I got my master's now, but back then I was still a young pup. And yeah, man, so my brother would come to town and of course I would be at the concerts. I would have my little sisters, my little brothers there. I ended up meeting somebody named Matlocks. So shout out to Matlocks one time. And you know, I bumped into him again a little later at a movie theater and he said something like, you know, why don't you come up and intern for the radio station, Power 92. And so, you know, I took him up on it. But first, you know, my brother, Theo Gio, you know, we had talked about it and he ended up popping back into town. He took advantage of the opportunity because, again, I was still in school, so I couldn't quite swing a school schedule and an internship schedule. But, you know, he got on there first, he killed it. And then when I graduated, I was able to go up there and intern myself. You know, just the support of a lot of folks, and the encouragement of a lot of people. And I think a little bit of that was just kind of my own drive. But if I'm honest, it was just kind of, you know, being prepared for the right opportunity, be willing to take advantage of it, and then being willing to work hard for it. You know, I had to work for free for a year. So that means I had to keep a job. I was working on my master's, and I was interning at a radio station. So it ended up being a lot of work, but, you know, I persevered and it ended up being the case that radio worked out for me. So, you know, I took that ball and I ran with it, and hopefully I'm doing right by everyone. A few things, you know, he's more my big brother than anything else. You know, if you, for those that don't know, his name is Raqqa or Irish Science, again, of the Dilated Peoples. But I like to think that a lot of what I do professionally, you know, he has a hand in to some degree or another because, you know, we're always on the phone talking about advice or, you know, we'll sit down and chop it up about different things, you know, how to get the most out of an interview or, you know, what path do you cut to get through this next phase in your career. You know, he helped me a lot when I was working with Channel 3 and doing my TV show and everything like that. But I'd say the most notable instance where we've kind of collaborated was when I started my current show, which is called Civic Cypher. It's a show about, you know, empowering Black voices and empowering the Black and brown communities against things like, you know, political inequalities and ensuring that there's some social justice, you know, fighting back against police brutality, and really just using the media platform to give the people a voice that otherwise wouldn't have one. And for those that know, my brother is a bit of a revolutionary. You know, if you're fans of Dilated Peoples, you know that they're kind of like keep it realers. And so tapping in with raqqa really helped me kind of frame the show and shape the show in a certain way. He made it a point to make sure that, you know, while it was a decidedly Black space, that there was also room for allies, there was also room for other people to tell their stories, because just because Black people are underrepresented doesn't mean we're the only people who are underrepresented. And so without diluting the thrust of what it is we're trying to do, we also wanted to make sure that it was open for our brothers and sisters who may not look exactly like us, but, you know, share our same issues, a lot of our same issues. And so, you know, solidarity was at the center of the narrative. And, you know, to date, he's still, you know, contributing topics to discuss. He's still, you know, sending over articles. You know, I call him the de facto executive producer of Civic Cypher. And so maybe it's because it's the most current thing, or maybe it's because, you know, it just kind of has gotten us to the point where we can really get into different discussions. Sometimes he's on this side of it, sometimes I'm on that side of it, sometimes we kind of feel the same way. But, you know, I think that of all the things, that's the one that stands out in my mind, and that's the one I'm most proud of. So again, shout out to my older brother, Raqqa Taylor, AKA Irish Science of the Dilated Peoples. Yeah, so #lunchbag is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Shout out to Q Ward. It's something that really was born out of a combination of things. Once upon a time, I was, you know, doing primetime radio. I was, you know, on magazines every other month. They would put me on the covers. It was very flattering. You know, I would drive down the streets and there'd be billboards of me.
Yeah, man.
You know, I was on TV. I was doing everything. And, you know, I felt very connected to the community through some of the things that I was involved in already. When I was in college, I was the president of the Black Student Union. So through that, you know, my humanitarian efforts really revolved around Black issues. That was the lens through which I viewed the world. So I would always be at NAACP events. I'd be working with the Urban League. I would be working with just a lot of Black organizations and speaking to, you know, Black youth. You know, they would hear me on the radio, and, you know, a lot of folks would call on me to you know, help, you know, sell their agenda to young folks, and I was happy to support. But a time came when, you know, a program director of mine says, hey, you know what, you're doing all of these things, you're on all of these places, people are seeing you on billboards and whatever, what are you doing for the people? And of course I says, well, you know, I just spoke at the HBCU College Fair, I was at the MLK Youth Celebration, I was a featured speaker here or there, you know, I did these things, you know, whatever. And he's like, well, that's for Black people, but you got to recognize that there's a whole city that listens to you, and a whole city that wants to see what your contributions are, not just one group. And I thought, okay, that's fair. And, you know, I ended up having a conversation with the gentleman I mentioned earlier, Q Ward. Just, you know, the best person, the best human being you could ever meet. The Phoenix Suns DJ, if you don't know, official DJ for the Suns. So if you don't know Q Ward, get to know him. I promise you need some of that in your life. You know, he and I, we sat down and had a conversation with some other folks, Taji Sharp, Nick Beam, Frisco Lay, a few of us. We sat down and decided to come up with something that would really reach the community. And everyone had their own ideas, and I'll be honest, my idea was called the Britney Bash. It was named in honor of my cousin who passed from leukemia what we wanted to do was take all of our DJ equipment and call on other radio personalities at that time, Joey Boy, La, myself, some other folks that was on, and we were going to throw parties at the Children's Hospital or at, some homeless shelters or, women's shelters, things like that, for the kids who can't get out and have real parties. So that was what I wanted to do, the Britney Bash, and we did end up doing the Britney Bash. And then Q's idea was, hey, let's do an event called #LunchBag, where we basically get together, we make lunch bags, and we go out and feed the homeless, right? So instead of picking one or choosing one, we just decided, hey, let's do everything, right? So those things plus other things we decided to do. We ended up getting with our lawyer, Amy Owen, and she helped us get incorporated with a 501c3. And we were able to forge partnerships with the Central Arizona Shelter Services. That's CASS for those that don't know. It's kind of the Arizona equivalent to like Skid Row, where a lot of homeless folks congregate. A lot of services are there for them. So we ended up forging a relationship with them. Midwest Food Bank. We've had tons of corporate sponsors over the year, including Apple, Cox Communications, Fry's, you name it. A lot of folks have been supporting what I've been doing, or what we've been doing. It's not me, it's very much a us thing. But we have 1,000+ person volunteer base, and essentially what we've been doing for the past decade is meeting at Monarch Theater here in downtown Phoenix, and we'll have our volunteer base with us, and we'll create lunch bags. We'll create hygiene kits. If we have an extra giving element that month, we'll package shoes together, or do socks or hoodies or blankets, or if we need water because it's hot in Arizona, anything like that. We'll get together, our volunteers will get together, we'll have a DJ, we'll have kids playing, we'll have giveaways and raffles and all that sort of stuff. It's a fun event. Not everyone goes to church, so for some folks this is their way of making sure that karmically they're in line with where they want to be. And for the folks that do come to church, sometimes after they let out of church, they come and they rock with us. We've had ministers come and pray over the food. We welcome everybody. It's all about love. And everything I do is all about love. Everything we do is all about love. I don't keep no hate around me. And to date, we've managed to, like I said, put on 10 years worth of events. We average about maybe 300 to 400 kits every time we do the event. And if you want to find out more, just search us on Facebook, #LunchBagPhoenix. Yeah, man, it's a great thing to be a part of. We do it Sundays. Usually it's around 11 a.m. at Monarch Theater in downtown Phoenix. So #LunchBag. There's a lot of show memories from radio. But you know what? I might say that my show memories from radio probably is more of an extension from what I do on radio. So when I first got into radio, I was a production director, and I was an intern, and I would, set up the tents and drive the vans around and all that sort of stuff. Shout out to Dion McBean for giving me a shot, Mad Rich, DJ Mikey Mike. Those guys really looked out for me. Of course, Bruce St. James and everyone at Power 92. But, what ended up happening was, with time, I ended up becoming a DJ too, like an actual DJ. You hang around with a bunch of DJs, you're gonna get sucked into the lifestyle. Plus, I come from the pedigree, the Dilated Peoples, the real hip hop, keep it real. And so I always had a tremendous amount of respect for DJs. So I didn't want to do it unless I was gonna do it. I wasn't just gonna be like, whatever. But the time came when it made sense, and the right people were encouraging me to really, exercise that part of my brain. And so I kind of took to it. And, when I first started out on radio, I was doing a show called Friday Night Flavors with Squeak Boogie, the legendary Squeak Boogie. That's my man.
Yes,
we got the same birthday. That's my dog forever. And me and Squeaker, we did a bunch of shows. We were able to interview a bunch of folks. It's, the same with Bootleg Kev. When Squeak ended up moving to a different station, my brother, we we known each other since we was little kids. You know, Bootleg Kev. You know, we would do some interviews and that sort of stuff. But really, out of those things was born this new sort of facet of my career where I was able to be a DJ. And in leaning into that, that created a ton of opportunities for me that I would have never considered or even been aware of otherwise. And you know, one of the crowning achievements in my life was being able to see the world. I'm kind of a homebody, and I'm not really big on people. A lot of folks don't know that about me, but you know, once upon a time, you know, as a DJ, you know, some folks had caught me on Channel 3, and they made a big deal out of it, and that turned into some other stuff that basically resulted in me getting an agent. My agent booked me for gigs out of Vegas. And so we worked together for about maybe 5-6 years. And toward the end of our relationship, which I dissolved, just because I like being home. You know, I have young children, and I just kind of wanted to be here. And you know, I'm able to kind of write my own story at this point in my life. But agent reached out to me once upon a time and says, "Hey, would you like to go on tour around the world? You know, there's this company, they're looking for American DJs. You know, internationally, we're kind of known as like the best DJs because, you know, this is where DJing comes from. Right. And they wanted someone with a certain kind of look and a certain kind of style or whatever. And I mean, you know,
that's you all day, man.
And I get it. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but like I get it. And so, you know, it didn't take much convincing, even though I wasn't really big into traveling. If someone else is going to, you know, pick up the bill and they're going to feed me and put me in hotels, and I'm seeing Indonesia, and I'm in Singapore, and I'm in the Middle East, and I'm, you know, all these places in South America, wherever. I felt like that was something worth taking advantage of. And so I took 6 months off. I ended up taking a leave of absence. At the time I was working at Clear Channel or iHeart. I took a leave of absence and you know, went around the world and got to see things. And you know, for me, the thing that was most significant about that was being able to see different cultures expressed not through music necessarily, but through faith. You know, my father was a minister. My grandfather was a minister. And I had to come to terms with some parts of myself that are very important to me. But, you know, with my father and my grandfather having passed, you know, there's some things that you just don't know. There's questions that I can't ask about who I am and where I came from. And so, you know, in these other countries, being able to go into places where they worship, where I don't necessarily believe the same things that they do, but they welcome me as a brother. You know, take off your shoes, come sit with us, you know, share a meal, break bread. To see humanity expressed in that way was very influential and extremely beautiful. It grew me up a lot in ways that I never expected. And you know, I thought that was perhaps the most significant development, not just in my career, but in my journey as a man. Something that I'll never forget. And while that's not necessarily an on-air story, I was able to share those stories on air when I got back. And you know, I've always been this version of myself, the person who's love first, the person who tries to have some space for forgiveness. You know, I'm not no punk. Don't run up on me, but you know, but you know, I definitely, you know, try to make sure that, you know, love is at the center of the narrative, and brotherhood and sisterhood, if that applies. And that just gave me a little bit more fuel to have the conversations that are difficult, and to be the version of the person that I think the world needs. And so that would be my story about, you know, my favorite moment. So. You know, there's a handful of people that really truly love me, and I believe that. You know, I mentioned some of the names: Bootleg Kev, Q Ward, Theo Gio, D'Angelo. You know, there's lots of folks that, you know, I grew up with these people. They're, you know, I have the keys to their house. They have the keys to my house. You know. And so, you know, in terms of like my central unit, that's very much established. As far as the city, I'm just now stepping into that belief that people actually do love me and they do support me. And despite there being signs of it for such a long time, um, I just didn't really notice. I kind of always felt like I had to fight for a place, not necessarily for love. And so to look around and see that it kind of does look like love is very, surprising to me. And what comes together is, part of the story of what I've been able to tell is, it sounds really glamorous and really glitzy, being on the radio. People want to write about you and they put your picture on the front of a newspaper or the picture on the front of a magazine so everybody could read it. That's amazing. That's incredible. But also, I can go to the strip club and I DJ there, and the people know me and they know I'm respectful and they know I love them, and they insulate, they protect me from all the nonsense that goes with those environments.
Right?
I could go, to rougher parts of town. I could get down with everybody, and you don't really put things like that together until you reach a point where, like where I'm at right now, where I'm doing my show, Civic Cypher. It really exists to make sure that there's a place where we have representation. There's a place where we have a voice. There's a place where we get to shape our own narrative. We get to tell our own stories. We make sure that stuff gets chronicled the right way, that they're not telling our stories. They're not able to say that we're rioting if we can say otherwise. If we can say it was a peaceful protest, then it silences them, or else it outs them as liars. And that was something that was very necessary. And fortunately, the amount of support that I got from Power, from 102.7, from 93.9, from Radio Super, from Icon, from SDR, from Radio Phoenix, the list goes on. I forgive me if I'm missing. There's like 15 affiliates that we're working with now, and more to come. We're growing beyond the state. Not just with Dash Radio, but with iHeart. We just did a deal with them too, so they're going to give us a few stations to start out on. But to get that love and to experience that growth, and to know that people now come up and they say, hey man, look, I've always rocked with you. I've kind of known you from a distance or whatever, but now I can actually step out and say, listen, you really are about all of that stuff that you say that you're about. You really, whatever. Some folks know, some don't, but I had to quit a job on radio where I had worked there for 12 years because they would not allow, not Ramses, but black folks to have a space to say their piece. And I thought that was very important, especially when you listen to a station that uses black culture to make money. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? If your playlist is 70% black artists and 100% black music, you don't get to be a fair weather friend. And it's up to me as an employee to charge you with doing better. Not saying it's no hate, not saying I don't still love you, but we got to do better. And if you refuse that request and I still work with you, then I'm complicit in your behavior. And I cannot allow that to happen for me. I have sons looking at me. You understand? And so for me at least, folks that knew that I had to step out, I had to leave that security behind. I had to lose my job, and they know that I risked it. I didn't expect it to be as successful. I didn't expect it to exist. Once I left, I was just like, hey, I'm doing this for the city. I can't work there because, y'all deserve better, and I can't align my. You know what I'm saying? But to know that folks saw that and they says, look, man, you really are about it. You really, this, that, and the other. And they show me love. It's just a different kind of love than like, yo, I read about you, or my sister saw you at her high school when you did a mix tour, or my mom watched you on TV or something like. It's more like, hey, look, I believe in what you're doing. That really matters to me. If there's any way I can support you, please let me know. So that feels special, and my hope, of course, is that I continue to do right by everyone. I don't think that I'm Ramses Ja because I'm special. I think that, I work hard, of course. I got the right team around me. I have, some good support, but I really think that it's people that have subscribed, that have tuned in, that have clicked the like and have shared content, and that have, done, whatever. Even the folks that support Civic Cypher, which, by the way, if you want to, hit civiccypher.com, make a donation. It helps the show grow, and, I would appreciate it. We would appreciate it, both me and Q. But that's just, it's different and it's special. And again, I hope I don't I hope I do right by everyone. That's the best I could say. But other than that, man, the love feels good, and you know, it's starting to become real in my life. So this is some love right here too. So, you know, big shout out to Dave Miranda for making a spot for me. You know, that's special too. All right, so before I get out of here, man, just a couple more shout outs, some folks that I didn't mention so far. You know, of course, I love everyone, but I want to shout out my whole team at Monarch Theater and Bar Smith. Shout out to Sinbad, you know, one of the best to ever touch the turntables. You know, Pete Solids, of course, my man, 50 Grand, DJ Robbie Rob, DJ Tycho, Mad Rich. I didn't get to tell our whole story, but I love you, Rich, man. Rich is the reason that I became a DJ. That's my brother forever and ever and ever. I feel like I didn't say enough about Squeak or Matt or any of these guys that really looked out for me and showed me a lot of love early in the game. But I love you all so much. You know, I wouldn't be me without you. If it's cool, I want to shout out my baby boy, Christian, my little boy, Adonaiah. I love you so much. You guys inspire me to be the best man that I know how to be, and to learn how to be even better than that. You're worth that and a million times more, and I hope I do right by you in this lifetime. To everyone else out there, you know, that's subscribing, that's supporting, that's fighting the good fight. You know, I know it's hard out here. You know, we keep getting a lot of this trauma porn. We keep having to see these traumatic events and have to live through them. But, you know, I feed off of your energy, and hopefully you'll feed off of mine. Where I'm weak, hopefully you're strong. And where you're weak, I'll try to be strong, and we can have our therapy together. You know, again, check civiccypher.com to find out all of our broadcast affiliates. You know, tap in with me, and hopefully I say something that inspires you. Shoot me a question, a comment. You know, maybe you'll inspire me, and we'll get through this thing together, all right? I love y'all.
And there you have it. Much love and respect to the homie Ramses Ja, man. You know, that's someone I like to call I can do anything, because he can, you know what I mean? And I've known him for many, many years, and he's always been a good human being, and definitely deserves his flowers. So we were very happy to have him on the show today. Make sure you guys are following him on social media. Shout out to my brother Jimmy Nelson on that camera. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. You know, just keep enjoying them as they continue on. And until next time, stay tuned, stay blessed, stay healthy. Just give me 5, y'all.